Well, a very good evening to you all. I'd really like you to just let me know you can hear me okay. Usual thing that sound is okay and various other things. That would be wonderful. I've got a number of things set up here this evening. So if you can just let me know that the audio is okay and that everyone can hear me fine and there's no horrible video lag and all that sort of stuff, that would be fantastic. Would be really good. Okay, thank you for joining me. My name's David Clapp. If you don't know who I am, then I am a landscape photographer, travel photographer, and anything goes photographer. I think I've had to sort of like redefine myself, as I always do, and change the way I think and work pretty much all the time. Caroline, thank you very much for letting me know you can hear me. I have complete control of comments here, which is really good as well, so I can pop comments up as they come. And I encourage you to add comments in. I have a comments list that's going on down through here as well that we can add in. Steady on, Alan. And various other things. Hello, Gary. How are you doing? Good to hear from you as well. I'm glad you could join me as well. And hello to Jenny. Very good of you to be here as well. This is fantastic. And the numbers are building as the doors are now open, which is really good. I've decided to do this onto two platforms, YouTube and also to Facebook Live, just to let you know that these will actually be recorded. So if you do have to duck out halfway through or anything on those lines, then you can always come back and pick it up later on, depending on how long you've got. The talk is going to be for around about an hour and a half, and I'm going to discuss with you all sorts of things, what I've been doing in the last 6 months, as well as the impending problem we have, of course, with photography tours and issues. I've got a lot of images to show you that I'd like to also to go through as well, to just generally show you what I've been doing and get underneath the wiring under the board, if you like, of the photography I've been doing over the last few months in particular. But also to introduce you to, I'm going to use a platform called Patreon, which is a kind of like a mini crowdfunding idea, because after spending a summer of doing things like video editing and creating some test videos, if you like, not video content to do with photography, actually video to do with with cycling and bicycles. I thought I'd set myself a target of making fun sort of like movement YouTube video style stuff, which is quite fun. And I came to the conclusion that video editing is complex and tiring and is not a really great thing to be doing. So I've got some other ideas which I'll explain to you as we go through. Lots of friends here as well. Hello to Robert. How you doing? Good to see you, Bob. Great. And Jenny, you managed to make it as well. And Keith, brilliant. And Ian, and many different people here. So thanks for all your comments as you come in. So what's been going on the last few months? Well, as expected, everything's gone extremely local. I mean, as you know, if you don't know, I've been spending a lot of the last 10 years traveling the world rather relentlessly. And to be honest, this situation that happened for me over the last 6 months was quite a break. And I realized, as I started to do normal things that normal people do, like their gardening and various other parts, that I was actually winding down for the first time in quite some many years, and also with quite an empty diary. I was actually thoroughly enjoying the whole concept of fitness, and I think fitness became a massively important part of the last 6 months. And I've been out riding my bike an awful lot, and of course when lockdown lifted and things like that, doing a lot of walking. So my personal well-being is probably at an all-time high. And any workshop leader will tell you that after running the tours that it takes to sustain a business, that sometimes you can get to a stage where it can get very complex and your health starts to suffer. And I'm glad now that I'm also able to feel the benefits of having some space to breathe, which has been really good. So I used it as an opportunity as well to actually concentrate on not only being here and more normal things, but also to process work, to do a lot of things that I haven't been able to do, like tidy up, as in digitally tidy up a lot of things like server and stuff like that, but also heading out onto Dartmoor. So one of the things I'd like to do is just show you some sort of photographs that I've taken of things locally. And also in the summer holidays between, I think it was July and August, I went off running around all over the UK, which was really great fun. I went to, went to Brighton and then headed off up to London, then to Norfolk. It's all in the camper van. And then from there on up to Lincolnshire, the Peak District, Newcastle, Northumberland, and then over the borders into Edinburgh. And then from Edinburgh, a big circle back down, went to Huddersfield, bought a banjo, like you do, and then came home. So, and it turns out that even though I haven't got this banjo yet, because it's going to be arriving in, in around about a month's time, I've since then bought another banjo, like you do, and it's 110 years old. So that should be fun to use. A 110-year-old banjo to start me off, which looks like a really fantastic, lovely instrument. It's more of a traditional sort of folk instrument rather than a bluegrass banjo. So yeah, so I'm going to also learn to play. I played guitar for 35 years, I realized the other day, so I don't think it should be too difficult to learn. I've certainly got the dedication for it. So right at the very start of the year of lockdown, or so of March time, March, April, when Bluebell springtime hit, it was really lovely to get out, you know, in a local capacity. And when we were able to actually sort of travel within a reasonable distance towards, it was around about the middle of May, I think it was, I began to wander around Dartmoor and explore things. And this was just at the tail end of the Bluebell. So lockdown finished, and then I was able to head straight up to Dartmoor and do a lot of exploring. And I must admit, it's been a really, really monochromatic summer, I have to say. I've done loads of black and white. I've spent a lot of time doing infrared black and white, digital black and white, and also film black and white. I've shot a lot of film this summer. In fact, the other day I got 13 rolls of film back from my adventures around the country, which was really great fun to do. So I've got all sorts of bits that I want to show you, but I was particularly captivated with this rather beautiful, almost pencil-like render that you can see of this fabulous part of Dartmoor landscape. You've got Haytor here in the background. You've got Houndtor, you can see there. You've got Haytor Quarry there, and over on the other side there you've got Rippontor and bits of Saddletor you can just about see in the centre there. But it was great fun to actually get out and say, right, my mission this summer is to spend as much time exploring new places that I haven't been to, and I am highly surprised at the doorway that I've now opened. In other words, the fact that you know how you think you've got it all sewn up in your local patch. You think you know where you are, and you know all the best places to go to at all those certain times of year. Well, I can guarantee you now that has been redefined, and that is no longer the case for me. I've realised that there's a lot of area that I need to go to and that I need to explore, and also many of the journeys out that I took at that particular time were totally fruitless. I would go away, and the only thing that I would come away with is the knowledge that I've got to come back at a different time of year, rather than the time of year that I was there. So a lot of the missions were really quite frustrating, because although I did take some things that I was quite happy with, I came away with lots of mediocre, you know, sort of just relatively average material. I got really obsessed with this place here. Again, you can see with black and white infrared, but this is a place called Meltor. And Meltor is a wonderful combination of all sorts of things, from this very characterful sort of hawthorn tree growing up out of the rocks, not an uncommon thing you would see on Dartmoor by any means, but just an unusual position for it, and this wonderful sort of folded landscape that that went in every direction. And for those of you who are OCD about horizons, this is not the place to be. Can you see here? This is a building climbing hillside with the peak of it at the top there. There's if you want a point of reference, although it's very hard to see here, there's a Venford Reservoir right in the middle there. That's the only flat thing that you can see, but the whole thing looks like it's just leaning uphill, and I've lost my mind with regard to horizons. So that's a lovely place to go to, Mel Tor. It was fascinating, and I tried all sorts of different sets of conditions and weather and everything, and I have to say they're okay. I think most of them are all right. They're average. I'm not massively happy with a lot of it. I think with this one in particular, the confusion is here, which is the way that the rocks tend to sort of merge in with the hillside behind and the River Dart that you can see twisting around here. There's an area at the bottom here called Euthanasia Falls, which is quite a funnily named little sort of tiny waterfall, if you like. But the river's very fast flowing down here at the Dart. But evening sunset shoots would literally cause all sorts of problems with lighting seeming to be evocative, and then when I would get home I'd be excited. I'd stitch these panoramas together and find that it just merged and did all sorts of things I wasn't expecting it to do. I mean, it got a lovely cumulus cloud here in the background you can see there, but again, I don't know, it just wasn't distinctive enough, I have to say. And this was one of the big problems, I think, overall, was images have to be distinctive. Like this one is a distinctive image, and that was a day walk again out to two different areas. This is well, it's known as the circle near Down Tor, and it's a stone circle with a really long run of stones going all the way out to the distance there. I just got a lovely day with big fluffy white clouds, and all came together perfectly while literally lying around listening to skylarks. It was a wonderful moment to get all of that to come together as well as it did. And I've been in the area once or twice before, but again, just did a lot of infrared. It was very. I mean, the thing about all this as well is that in the the heights of summer, everything's extremely green, isn't it? And it can be too excessively green. This is another one that I'll show you. Again, just a work in progress, probably more than anything like that. But again, it just shows you sort of the topography and the landscape and the huge array of fluffy loveliness that we had going on at that particular time. But it's just places I'll probably revisit, places I'd like to go back to again. It's the back end of Borator Reservoir that you can see here. But the great thing is about doing this and coming away with near misses is that you can often say, hang on a minute, I really like that bit in infrared there. That's a great bit with all the lovely textures, and you can see the lake just about, and maybe there's something in here. So sometimes even when you don't get those wow moments that you believe should be the dividend that you get, the payoff that you get for all of this, you'll be really surprised there that sometimes all these things can actually be of benefit to you. So it's the thinking process as well. It's the going back and realizing that that things are most definitely going to improve, and you are going to calculate when the best time is to be in these locations. So there was all sorts of stuff that came out of it. I got quite fascinated with using the large formats. We did a lot of large format photography as well. And some of the locations I went to, for example, at the top here at Chinkwell Tor, this is photographed on Velvia 50. And it was a lovely distant foggy morning. In other words, the fog was quite a lot further off. And I had some ideas in mind for exactly sort of what I wanted to do. But if you have a real look at the color palette that you can see here, and then if I go to the next one, which is the same location just with the film back changed, slightly different crop, you can see it jump there, but that's Hectar 100, so two totally different films, and this is shot with a 90mm lens. Now you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, that's not a 90mm lens, it's almost a wide angle lens. Well, you have to take all of your lenses and you have to divide them by 3. So this is approximately 30mm. I think it's only approximate, but So if you take, somebody says to you, if they're shooting a large format camera, I have a 65mm wide angle, then you kind of know what they mean. 65mm is going to be about 22 or something like that, 21mm, something like that. It's around about the early 20s, and it's also, you have to think, because this is a panorama as well, you're going to get the appearance of a longer focal length simply because of the layout of the picture. So it produces 2-to-1 panoramas, and I got really quite into these. I went to Ditsworthy Warren with my friend Alan. Phil didn't come that night. Alan and Phil Howe, not Phil Howe, but Alan Howe anyway. Alan's here. He says here, I'll just make you laugh. It says he's having a pop at my OCD. Alan's got terrible OCD for horizons. He can spot anything being a few millimeters out. Literally anything that's slightly on the skew, he'll notice. And it is often good to send pictures to, because he can pick up these technical things. Master carpenter, that's why, you see. So we went to Ditsworthy Warren, which is a lovely place to go. Featured in Warhorse, the Steven Spielberg movie, absolutely fantastic. And you can see there this wonderful sort of bunkhouse building that's left there is all that remains of this area. My good friend Mark Lakeman, he'd probably be able to tell you a lot more about what Ditsworthy Warren was. He's a local Dartmoor guide, but you can see again, using different film stocks produces completely different results. It was also, light was way more intense, and you can see the use of color negative creates a kind of a little bit of a cyan sky there. So all I'm really saying with this is, if you're not into color casts, then don't go shooting film, because that's a lot of what you get a lot of the time, and you can't start digitally post-processing everything and trying to remove it all and take everything out. If you do that, then what's going to happen is that you're going to be in a position where you're actually removing the magic. And it's something that I know a lot of people struggle with when it comes to this and comes to film photography in general. So it was great fun to go there. And a lot of what we did, of course, when everything came back and there was an opportunity to meet up in smaller groups or with another person, was a lot to do with camaraderie. In other words, actually, I was really pleased to just get out and have some fun with a friend and enjoy ourselves. So the walks I did and the places I went to with either non-photography friends or photography friends were really really special to me. We had really great fun. It was really good. I got to find all sorts of other bizarre places. I've got like 4 pictures to show you here in sequence, from digital to I think it's 3 different types of film possibly. But this is a rather unique little tree at a place called Heckwood Tor. I'll leave you to find that. And I love the way the rocks just fan out in different directions and seem to sort of explode from the center tree that you can see there. Again, there was no clouds, there was no drama. The hill behind me was blocking the sun for quite a long time, so it was quite difficult to be able to get any good light on it. But certainly there were times when, for the first few minutes anyway, when the sun peaked over the top, that it had sort of quite a lovely orangey quality. So that's black and white. That's black and white digital. That's color digital as well, so give you some kind of reference point idea. And it's quite yellowy, I'd say, within reason from what we can see here. But you can see that the magic is definitely in both mediums. I like them both. I find them both rather appealing. And then we go here, and you can see the total change in palette. Now, I couldn't get it exactly the same, of course, because I had to take down one camera, assemble another. They've all got different heights and focal length, etc. So I'm only trying to sort of approximate exactly what's going on. I've also got to use a graduated filter here, because the latitude of Velvia is only 5.5 stops, something on those lines. And I pulled a grad over the top, and I can see that that's now present. But look at the greens. The greens have got this beautiful sort of Velvia bluey greens, and everyone goes on about Velvia and things like that having bluey greens. And you may have never even shot all this stuff before, and I can completely understand if it's not massive of interest to you ever going and doing it. But I just like to show people this, because it really does give a different concept. And there we go again. You're noticing everything's gone slightly magenta, and I've changed the back over, and now we're shooting with Ektar 100. And I really like the palette of Ektar 100. It's great. It produces a wonderful fine-grained scan as well, which is very easy to deal with. So there we go. Look, let's just do it again. So that's Ektar 100. If I go back, that's Velvia 50. And then if we go back again, that's digital. That's the, as you can see there, I think that was just done on an EOS M3, or it might have been my 5D4, I can't remember. But and there's the same conversion to black and white. I think the black and white's very powerful, but I do like the others as well. I think that the Ektar in specific was also, let me just scan through again. That one there I find particularly appealing overall. So again, I've just been experimenting is what I'm saying, and trying different cameras out and doing all sorts of fun stuff, because I'm a restless soul who can't be sitting still and doing nothing. Thanks to Alan and Phil, they invited me down, and we went to some wonderful sections of Dartmoor, which was really fabulous. And we found all of these evocative forests in the mist. And I wanted to just sort of show you a quick sequence of these, because it was really good fun. Alan rang me up and said it's incredibly foggy down here. So I went down to the south side of Dartmoor, not to Wistman's Wood, but just to find to other areas. There's no point even saying where it is, because it's nowhere near anywhere in specific. But you can see here that the whole idea here was to get images that were powerful and that were also giving a sense of dimension to the place. And I've sat on all of this for, well, since May, I think it was, really. I've not really understood the value of a lot of these at the time. I've always tried to often to think about work as I produce it. You can see here, look, if I go back, that one's the wider angle, the more zoomed in of the two. And I love this because it's got really sort of like heart-shaped composition, the way it sort of comes up and around. And it was very difficult to traipse about inside there at the time. And that's a wider shot and zooming in. So I've sort of gone in on the subject and zoomed out, rather than this one, which is sort of standing back and zooming in, so the opposite. And there were some really fabulous structures in here, some really, really good, opportunities. And I tried all sorts of different ideas with it. But the thing is all I can say is that not using a tripod was critical to the success of this, because I found that, and I do find that if I'm wandering around with my camera and I'm tethered to a tripod, the setup time of every picture is so slow that I find it incredibly frustrating overall. It is really, really annoying. And I'm very much a non-tripod person now that obviously our quality of ISO performance has gone up. So these all shot on my 5D4 and shot with I think it's with a 24-70 lens. And the whole beauty of this was the fact that you could move around the subject, and there's so much parallax, literally move slightly right or left, and this boulder's going to go in behind these trees here, or this tree is going to interlock with this one. And you have to make so many critical decisions as you're moving around the subject, just slow movement, sort of left and right, as you're how can you say, policing the edges. You're looking at all of the interplay between all of the shapes, and you're also trying to see it as a finished product in your mind's eye, just curves going in different directions, where like forcing the tree corners up into, as you can see here, up into the very corners of places. It's all about deconstruction, I think, more than anything, and making sure that you get everything 100% as accurate as you can. And that's going to be the camera's height, the camera's position, and moving and assessing as you're going. I recently did a talk. I've been doing a lot of Zoom talks, as you can probably imagine, over the last few months as well. But I've been doing a really successful talk in New Zealand, Australia, And I started doing some in Canada actually, but I've been doing a lot in New Zealand, a lot of clubs in New Zealand, which has been really good. I mean, I never get there anyway, so it's a great a great chance to use this platform, which exploded at exactly the right time to reach out to people. And I came up with something just in the middle of a conversation with somebody, saying that the tripod supports your idea. It doesn't support the camera, it supports your idea, primarily supports your idea. Then it supports your camera. So in other words, you have to make sure whatever you're doing, that tripod comes in at the very last minute, if it happens to be essential to the success of the picture. I love this one, the way it all sort of explodes out from the middle or something. It just goes in each direction, and all these branches everywhere and all these different perspectives. It was really something. And you'll notice also the images are desaturated, and because this is only, I think this must be like the third time I've ever kind of done this and been in a situation like this, I now realize the desaturation is actually quite key. In fact, black and white can also work extremely well within this environment as well. The thing is what the green can be so overwhelming, especially at this time of year. And it's not so bad in winter, by the way, but it can be so overwhelming overall. That the main thing is that the desaturation can work really well. And it was quite funny because showing these images to people in New Zealand, I was explaining to them how I really used to despise the fact that when pictures of this nature or apocalyptic kind of mountain pictures all became popular, how everybody used to refer to it as Lord of the Rings. And I said to them, "You've probably heard of that film, haven't you?" And we were all laughing about it at the time. And the main thing is that I think that was almost the start of the end in certain respects for a lot of photography, in the sense that is the point where computer graphics and the overuse of Photoshop and processing now started to blur the reality line. And I think that everyone enjoyed those sorts of CGI films so greatly at the time that this is where it all started to change for everybody. And I think that is a very important point in the fact that we cross over our appreciation of fantasy from our film world, and it's often very excessive. And I just find that it's too much these days. So from me, what you're going to get is authentic. You're going to get as real as I can make it. Yes, you're going to get processing, but you're going to get it as real as I can make it. Or if I've made a decision about the processing in some way or some nature, I would have done so specifically to detract or to focus you on a specific point. I mean, here we go. One of my favorite trees and rock combinations on Dartmoor of all time. I'm showing you one of the biggest cliches on Dartmoor. If you haven't been there, you should go there. It's in between. Everyone's calling it Holwell Tor now. It's in between Saddle Tor. It's on the sort of Haytor Down area. It's very easy to find. You can see it from the road almost. And this was done on Velvia 50, and I use these sorts of locations specifically to keep my arrows sharpened, so to speak. In other words, I'm using it for a return. I put roll of film in the camera, gone out and photographed this scene because it had taken away the technical complexity. It also allowed me to really concentrate on more extensive technique and metering. And then the bonus came from glorious sunset, which captured on Velvia, gives you these lovely strong colors. But you'll notice they're strong, but they're not excessively saturated. And that's the really important part of this that I want to sort of concentrate on with this. So that that is the look of it. If you don't like that sort of look, and a lot of people find this look sort of that I get referred to as old school, I totally understand why. I do understand why, but that's because the way digital sensors are now in comparison to, you know, a film stock, a film type from many years ago. So that's just something to bear in mind. And I'm not just going to carry on with on a film thing all the time. It's not essential. One of the things I did want to show you was the fact that I managed to capture the said comet, wherever it is, the wonderful comet. I got really fed up with everybody's attitudes when I was reading stuff on social media. And you know, if you do know, I don't have a great time on social media. It does irritate me, and I have to go and do things that are more constructive. He says broadcasting to YouTube and Facebook, but I think the day-to-day thing, I'm a kind of drop in, have a quick look, and I'm gone type character. But there seemed to be this kind of cynicism and sarcasm with the fact that people were actually able to go out for the first time. I mean, it's the first time in, I can think, my photographic experience that I've ever been able to photograph a comet. I mean, I could have maybe in the film days bagged one or two. If in the last 30 years there's been anything notable to photograph, I can't really say. But the fact that you could go out and stand there, and let me give you an idea. If you didn't see it, it was as big as your thumb. So if you just stood and point your arm out at the horizon and sort of hold it about, you're looking for something that's the length of your thumb in the night sky. It was really, really amazing to see, and everybody was obviously very excited about that and wanted to bag a whole load of different locations with the comet over the top, and you could see it happening. And there were some amazing ones. The Stonehenge one, I mean, that said it all. And then there must have been a line of 200 photographers all trying to get the same picture. I don't know, but it must have been chaotic up there. But I went down a different road, which was I used an astronomical tracking mount to do a study of it, and that's what this is. And this is 10 deep sky stacked images put together using Deep Sky Stacker, which is a great piece of free kit. Runs on a PC only. I run it on a Mac, on a PC emulator on my Mac. You load 10 TIFF files into the program, and it will extract data from your image that you can't see normally. And that's where this wonderful magic second tail comes from, and all of the fanning as the comet sort of disappears off into the black. This is done with a 100 to 400 lens, a 5D Mark IV. The 5D4's at 1600 ISO, and the shutter speed is 30 seconds at 250 millimeters. So you're seeing that's complex. Obviously, needing to get a very steady image like this is going to involve tracking, and I'm using a fairly cheap tracker. And I don't know if I've actually got it here. Yeah, there you go. You can see the tracker I'm using. It was in fact, I swapped it for a workshop place, which was really good. And it's an Ioptron sky tracker. They don't even make this anymore, but I'll just explain to you briefly how it works. And that is that this plate here moves around and revolves. It's battery powered and revolves at the same speed as the Earth rotates. On the right-hand top here, you have a polar scope, and that allows you to align it with a deep space object, for example, the North Star. And the North Star is not exactly the right position. The North Star is slightly off from the rotation point, the axis, if you like, of our planet. So if there's the axis, then the North Star moves around it very, very tightly to where this is. But it's a great guide, of course. You use a phone, you find out your latitude, and you put your latitude in with this scale that you can see here on the right. So, for example, in Cornwall, when I was setting this up, it was 50 degrees in latitude. So you just dial in 50 by turning this dial here, and the whole thing kind of leans back like that to 50 degrees. You then spin it around on the tripod, and you find your North Star. You use very small adjustments to move it, and then bingo, you've got it in the right place. And then you can do longer exposures. But the longer you go, the more accurately that setup has to be. In other words, you have to be utterly precise when you're using a much longer focal length. So that was the challenge, was to use a longer focal length to do that. And it certainly worked. It was really good. And I was able to take 10, I think it was either 30-second or 1-minute exposures, and combine them all together to create that last shot. But there was varying levels of fun to be had. And one of the things was also putting constellations and the comet. I thought that which was a nicer thing to do, to include it with something else over given locations. And this was taken in Cornwall, and it's a fabulous thing. It's a amazing thing to actually have this additional element in the sky. And you can see this was taken around about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and this is the issue. You're just getting that light blue on the horizon. I don't know if you can work out. You can just see here on the right hand side that I'm actually standing here, And I've gone out with who lives down in Cornwall, and he's behind the cameras. He's the master of ceremonies, and I'm doing all the light painting. We've also got some small light cubes inside, and that's illuminated inside here. And it's also the angle is very critical to the front of the mine, because it's brought out all of these fabulous textures. It's a single shot, and I've light painted the foreground, and I've been running around like an idiot, and it must have been 10 to 15 attempts to get this one picture with lots of variation, lighting from the right, lighting from the left, lighting from beneath, changing the intensity of the light cube inside, which is like a small cube with variable brightness that you can put inside. Very good for light painting in general. I've got a question come up, which I think is a really good one. It's from Bella. Bella, I just want to say, yes, I can do exactly that. I think I kind of covered it in what I've said, but I also want to give you some idea about shutter speeds and various other parts as well, which I think are necessary to know. And it's stuff you can find anywhere, so I'm not really, in that sense, having to go too deeply into all of this. The main thing is I think you should set your camera at sort of 3000 ISO. It's a really good moment, a good value, if you like, to set it to. And then if you're just doing it without the astronomical mount, then what you can do is you can use a shutter speed of sort of 25 seconds, something on those lines. But if you are using a mount, you can do much longer shots. So if you're using a 24mm lens and you're pointing at the night sky, you could do, if you just roughly aligned the tracker and didn't get it in exactly the right place, you could just switch it on and then just do a shot for at least 2 minutes and be perfectly fine. Your alignment would be perfectly okay. The longer you go with focal length, the more the problems occur. So, for example, a good focal length to do this is 24mm. And 24mm will provide you with about 20 seconds, 25 seconds with without getting too notable star trails. You go over 20 and you're starting to see them. 25, they're starting to get more prominent. 30, you'll definitely do that, and you'll smudge out the Milky Way. So there's all sorts of settings that you can use to make life easier. One, of course, is mirror lockup if you're dealing with a mirrored camera. If you've got a mirrorless camera, it is more difficult to get things right. And having fast glass is, of course, extremely good. So having a 2.8 aperture is vitally important. If you've got it, if you haven't got it, then F4 and then push your ISO. So go from 3200, which I would say is the standard, and then go up to something on the lines of 6400 if you have to. But this is why light painting comes in and is so much better. This whole thing here is light painted. This is light painted, the ground is light painted, and you can see the field. There's sort of like little bits of lighter grass that you can see down there. That's because of dew that's all over the grass. It's being picked up by the torch as I'm skimming the torch over the top of the grass. And this area here, you can see it's all important to get a subject that's got dimension, and you can see very much a 3D dimension to all of this. Again, look at the sky. I mean, this is like 1:30 in the morning, and it's never properly dark. This is Cornwall, so you guys who are up north, you know exactly what this is like and how complicated it is to do. But it's just important, again, to position everything with generous space and to understand where your subjects are, because they're going to move reasonably quickly. You'll be quite surprised how fast they move, and you'll need to recompose. So some images are done turning the tracker on, and some of them are with the tracker off, and these are all tracker off images. But let me show you images with tracker on. And this was, if you received a post from me, you'll have seen the St Michael's Mount image used for my poster advertising this rather impromptu tonight's talk. By the way, we've got nearly 60 people here, which is fantastic, on 2 different platforms. So thank you for joining me. I should have done a little bit more advertising on this, but I just thought I'll just do a talk. Just do one. It'll be fun. People will turn up. I'm sure they will. Let's hope. And you did. So thanks for that. Look at the sky. It's light, sort of mid-blue. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, there's not a lot of color in that Milky Way, and I've seen pictures with more color. That's because it's too early. In other words, this image is taken too early. This is midnight, and it's facing due south. And I also want to point out that this will probably never happen again. because this is St Michael's Mount with all the lights switched off and only the faint glow of Penzance coming from the right-hand side illuminating it. Normally what happens is that there's a couple of hotels that are on the roadside behind, and you'll guess it. There's bright lights that fire onto St Michael's Mount, mainly I think to illuminate the island for their diners and guests. Well, because of lockdown, they were switched off, and when lockdown came back on again, they were all furloughed and the businesses were shut, of course. So the only lighting you're seeing here is coming from the right-hand side, and this meant that there was a really good opportunity then to be able to do a tracker on image for the sky and a tracker off image for the ground. So it is a composite in the sense of what it is, but it's not a composite in the way that we would normally expect photo montaging to be. In other words, it's done for technical reasons to put the image together. But have a look at the next one, because this is done at a later point, and this is taken at around about 1:30 in the morning. The funny thing was I actually went down there a few weeks before, and not a few weeks before. I went down there the day before with a few friends of mine, and when we got there was way too much humidity. It was up here. So in other words, you can see down at the bottom of the picture, there's this kind of murky sort of mistiness that you can see down there. But if you look at the top half, it's all very clear. Well, this murky mistiness was actually much higher. I wasn't massively keen on doing it that night, and I was actually having more fun playing slide guitar. So I sat around on the side waiting for everybody, playing guitar for probably about an hour and a half until 1:00 in the morning. It was great fun to do on an old steel sort of resonator guitar I've got, the one that's on the cover of Brothers in Arms, if you remember that album from years ago. So I went back the following day, and that was really great to go there that evening, and the humidity was a lot less, so it worked. So this is I think it's 1 minute exposures for the sky times 10, and then another 1 minute exposure for the ground, a single exposure. Because if you think about it, if the camera is slightly moving like this as it's going across and tracking the night sky, this creates a very smudgy looking ground, which isn't going to work at all. So then you switch the tracker off and then take your final one for the sky. Now this, as you can see here, this sky's got a lot of color in it, and it's getting towards a very deep gray. But if you were to photograph these sorts of skies in the American deserts, and I'll just break to just show you, for example, a picture that I can very much, which very much explains my point. If I can find it, which is in here. Where is it? Okay, we'll just take this one for the minute. You can really see just how dark everything is and how black the night sky is. The deeper, the darker you go into the night. It's that's like really important to get that density. And then you'll also get this light that you can see here that really comes out when you stack those pictures together, and it'll also make a lot more dust visible and present, as you can see there. But humidity is a massive problem, of course, in the UK when it comes to doing astro. But I'm kind of digressing into making this into an astro talk. But you can see the concepts, and you can certainly see the ideas with all of this. It really is an exciting thing to do. And it's something you can do present in the UK without a doubt. Here's there you go. That's probably one of the better details of a Milky Way, done at 20 with a 2470, the 5D4, the tracker, and these are 1.5 minute exposures taken in the Namibian desert, and you can certainly see the difference there in the density and the clarity. That's the more important part, is the clarity. It's sad because I should be in Namibia right now, but of course, well, we can't go, can we, for obvious reasons. And although it's been times of change, it's moved us into different directions, and new directions perhaps, and a new appreciation to everything and what's been going on. And I definitely wanted to talk to people, because I know I've got quite a lot of my workshop clients online as well as others. But I think it's probably a good idea to just break at this point and just have a bit of a chat about this, because I think this is vital. In this period and in this time, I've been thinking about this heavily a lot, because obviously this has deeply affected not only my business, maybe your businesses as well. And if you're employed or self-employed, or if you've been furloughed and things like that, I greatly feel for you. I mean, for me, it's just literally been the handbrake pulled on a rather large revenue stream with regards to my business. Luckily, I have other revenue streams, so I'm still okay. I do many, many different things, and I've also used these times for invention. In other words, I've been marketing myself, and I've been selling work directly to companies that are operating, and a lot of people aren't at the moment, they're shut down. But on the other side of it, what's been going on is that I've been using Zoom, and I've been using the idea of doing talks and the platform of doing talks to do interesting talks for not only companies who I work for on a regular basis like Canon UK, but also taking my own initiative. In other words, let's try and do talks to camera clubs in locations that I would never get to. And I've mentioned, obviously, if you caught the first part of my talk, I've been doing talks to places like New Zealand and also Australia. It would be very difficult to do talks there. They've been great fun to do. The time zone limits are not too bad. Well, I've just agreed to do one in Vancouver. I don't know if you know how many hours Vancouver is behind us, but it means that I'll be starting my talk at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Ouch. I'm trying to convince them maybe we could do it on a weekend and make it a special event for like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday or something like that. So it makes it 10 p.m. or something for me. But we're still in talks over that one at the moment. But it just shows you that suddenly I'm picking up all this stuff, and people are saying to me, yeah, it'd be great. So 5 hours behind. There's a lot of what's going on Toronto area. And that means that I can certainly do these Zoom talks. Zoom talks are fantastic fun. They're really, really good. I've got to tell you this. I did one recently. Everybody, it was in the talk. It was a really good one. It was I did a talk about my adventures in the American deserts, and we got towards the end. It was like the end 15 minutes. Everybody became aware that they were going to be unmuted, and the host who I was with, he turned around to me and he said, right, I'm going to unmute everybody now, and we'll have a bit of a Q&A session. And as soon as he did, all we heard in the background was, why don't you go fuck yourself? And everybody froze and said nothing. It was literally one of the funniest moments I've ever had doing anything online. It was utterly hilarious. We don't know who did it. We never found out who did it. And everybody was not knowing what to do from then on. It was really, really funny. So yes, it's that wasn't what I was expecting at all. But these platforms have given me different revenue streams and different angles, and I've got many others as well that have been that are still rolling forwards. And then there's also agency sales. I work a lot selling canvas art, for example, is another thing I do. So there's a continuity of sales that have kept me rolling over, which is no problem. But yes, a very important, very large part of my educational platform has had to have a handbrake, and I don't, I think that is most definitely the right thing that to do at this particular point is to freeze everything right now. Now, I've been speaking to everybody from GPs, friends of mine, for example, doctors, people who work in law, and many other things, to try and find a pathway through this, to find a working solution. And if you're expecting me to tell you there's a working solution now, I can tell you now that there is no working solution. There's nothing really that will work. And I'm also, I've got some thoughts that I want to sort of mention about all of this with regard to the future in the next 6 months. And I am saying to you, I obviously can't stop anybody from doing anything, but I'm saying to you, you need to be very careful right now, not only for your health reasons, but you need to be very, very careful for many different reasons with regard to this, because this is complicated. The biggest problems might not be going abroad and getting ill. The biggest problem could be something far more complex, like being trapped abroad. And we've all seen those nightmare stories. We've seen things that have been going on. with regard to people being trapped in different countries. And it brings us to the first fundamental question that would clear all this up in any given way. And that is, have you taken a vaccine? And the answer is globally, no, because there is no vaccine. We haven't developed a vaccine. And this is the question that we keep coming back to all the time, which is, that is the absolute fundamental. If you've got a vaccine, imagine a theoretical working vaccine, and you have it in your system, then that's great, because that means then you're protected. And I can see in the future that that is going to be a requirement. And when you think about this, this is a requirement just the same as your travel vaccinations, wherever you go. It's going to be the same sort of thing. So just in the same way you wouldn't irresponsibly travel to foreign countries and not take vaccines, of course you would. You would very much take a vaccine for typhoid or diphtheria or various other things. It goes without saying, and this will be in the same category as doing all of that. But this is something that now extends into not only the travel sphere, but also into a local, UK-based and even very locally, a sphere that's going to be unusual for us to deal with, and unusual for every country to deal with as well. It brings in problems that are to do with, especially from my perspective, insurances. Risk assessment. Risk assessment is obviously a massive part of what I have to do. And let me say to you now, if you don't go with people who are risk assessing, you really, really need to seriously think that out. You need to make sure that you need to ask people to see their risk assessments, or to have statements for risk assessments, especially for the future, because there's too much of this winging it. And I'm not going to go into any great detail, because you know as well as I do how to navigate around this. So you're going to have to be more vigilant with regard to that. The legal position is very unclear at the moment with regard to this. And again, once you've gone away from the have we got a vaccine or haven't we, you start to get into a series of if not, almost basic programming. In other words, things like, it's if this happens, then what should we do? How can we manage this? And the whole situation at the moment is entirely volatile and also entirely unpredictable, as you've even seen probably watching the news within the last few days, as things have started to change in local capacities. And believe me, from assessing news channels on an irregular point, I go through them maybe for 5-10 minutes first thing in the morning, and then maybe again in the evening, because it's just too much, isn't it? It is just too much. The main thing is that it's liable to change. So, okay, let's imagine that you say, all right, then, well, let's run things in the UK and do UK only trips. Okay, that's something that could be done. But as you've now seen, it's just as liable to change right now. You may be thinking, okay, Lake District, let's go to the Lake District. It's going to be so much photography going on in the Lake District this year, as long as things are allowed. But okay, let's just imagine it from another perspective. I was in Edinburgh, and I was on my round the UK trip, and in Edinburgh, I was adhering to every restriction that was asked of me. Of course I would. Face masks on buses, face masks in shops, various other things, obviously respecting everybody who was up there. And I was staying in my camper van on a campsite, same sorts of sets of restrictions there. Somewhere during that 3 days when I was there, I got a cold, and this is with hand sanitizer and with a face mask. I got a cold. Okay, now, okay, this could happen. It's liable, isn't it? It's a cold kind of cough thing that was up here, but it was phlegmy, so it wasn't a dry cough, COVID cough, if you want to call it on those lines. But this really actually made me start to go into the mindset of imagining that I wasn't just on holiday, but I was actually away somewhere. And okay, you can look at this from many different angles. Imagine getting to the airport and then you can't fly. Imagine getting to the airport at the other end. You've managed to get to the other end, and somebody's now tested you, and they think that you could have COVID, and that you're not allowed into the country. And now imagine that you've just spent £3,000 on a photographic tour, and that has now happened, and you're stuck at the airport because something's happened to you in the last 24 hours or similar. What do you do if you're stopped at the airport? then think about the next thing. What happens if I'm stopped at the airport? What happens if something happens to me and I'm your leader? And then, so immediately, this is major stuff, and there is no way out of this. What if I'm running a tour and one of my clients gets a cough? Okay, it's a cough. It's not a COVID cough. But what if they get a cough? You can see the problem straight away. Everybody is going to be thinking, Lord above, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this to happen? This is in a pre-vaccine world. You must understand. This is why I'm demonstrating this. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. But imagine then you've got a group of people who are now extremely worried, and they're worried for the correct reasons, but could be worried about something that is just simply an autumnal winter cough. Who knows? And you can see this problem starting to escalate. You're trying to run a business here, and you're trying to run a workshop that's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be exploring and excited and everything else, not looking over your shoulder thinking he's gone down. It could be going down, or not feeling well, or something on those lines. And it is incredibly worrying to run a business model with all of this going on. It's not conducive for a good time in any way. And then we start getting into nightmare situations. Okay, what happens if you are abroad and there's a lockdown enforced abroad? Out of the blue, you're locked down and you're suddenly stuck abroad. What happens if you're in a hotel and suddenly an outbreak happens in the hotel you're staying in? What happens if you then find that there's a 14-day quarantine change and you get into massive trouble coming home from work, which we've obviously seen people go. In other words, it just goes on and on and on. And people will do silly stuff. They'll say stuff like, okay, well, I have to earn a living, so I'm going to make a contract, and I'm going to hand the contract to my clients, and I'm going to say to them, there you go, that all this text absolves me from any responsibility. Well, it doesn't, because you can't go leading people into complexity. You can't lead people into danger and expect at the other end as though you're then no longer responsible because they've said, okay, I do so at my own risk. That's not the point. You led them there. It's totally different. And any lawyer will tell you that that's exactly the situation. So I am not running anything at the moment. Not yet. Not until there's a clearer idea, until there's a clearer path. And you've seen that we've now gone to, hey, we can all meet in groups down to a maximum of 6. Well, that would change everything. Imagine if I was running a tour with 7. What am I going to do? Sorry, there's a whole lot of straws here. You'll have to pull one. It can't be done. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's an absolute imperative that I supply a professional-based service with a complete duty of care. And without having a clear path to do that, I cannot do it. And this is exactly the same situation. It's exactly the same. And no matter how I look at it, and I can't get around it. Now let's look at this, which is imagine the vaccine demographic. Now, everybody who is 50 plus, I mean, I'm nearly 50 myself. I'm going to take one. I definitely have one. I need to for professional reasons. I would not do that. But another thing to think about as well. Again, this is theorizing. Please don't take this as any kind of actual framework. I'm not sure. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a doctor. I can only go by things that people have sort of told me that I'm distilling. But 15 to 30 age group is obviously been responsible for a lot of circulation of the virus between them. And from what I've been told, in the most basic way, it's to do with something on the lines of imagine you have cells that have a lock, and that the virus has got a key, and the two kind of fit together. Well, when you're younger, you don't seem to have cells that even have a lock, and the virus can be bombing around your body and make you feel unwell, but it won't actually do much to you. And then as you depending on your race, or depending on your age, more of those cells can be latched onto. And then the next thing, I mean, the final thing is you can be extremely sensitive to that, and that of course can happen if you're plus 70 or plus 80. It can be obviously very, very susceptible to it. My gran, who is 99 years old this year, we've got to get her to 100. She's got to get there. You can see the problem straight away. I mean, they've gone into a complete lockdown inside the care home she's in. No one in, no one out, just the staff. That's it. Regular testing all the time. You can see how frightened they are of everything. But when it comes to it, you know, vaccines take 4 to 6 years to create, and a lot of the time anyway. I mean, okay, they can be rolled out faster, etc., depending on the speed of working. But you also got to look at it from the perspective that if a vaccine suddenly became available, a rushed vaccine became available, you're going to want to take a vaccine immediately? The answer is, I know that I wouldn't particularly. As with most things, I like things to. I mean, I like to let my operating systems on my computer bed in for at least a year and a half before I even think about upgrading to Catalina or something. You know what I'm saying? It's the same sort of thing. I like bug reports, and I want to, I want to know what I'm doing. So this is going to be a really complicated year, and you know, I don't need to explain that to you. You know well enough, but I wanted to get my point across with regard to this situation. I wanted you to understand that, because I think you have to make sure that you are safe, and that you are operating, and that you are you're not taking risks at this point. It's way too early for any activity of this nature. And I personally believe people who are trying to bring you into a, hey, come on, let's just go and have some fun kind of workshop environment, has no real understanding of the legal position, and has no understanding of the danger that they are not only putting their clients in, but also just how reckless that they are being with regard to their own professionalism. It's like somebody said to me, you go away, you pull it off, you come back, you're a hero. You go away, something happens, literally you'll be thrown under a bus, and it's your career over. And I'm not willing to risk that. I'm not willing to do anything of that nature. I'm certainly not willing to risk the safety and the well-being of my clients. So it goes without saying that that's exactly how it's going to be. So yeah, I'm going to just hang it out for the minute, and I advise you to do the same. Let's just remember that there's plenty of life left, and well, those deserts have been there for a couple of 100 million years, so they're not really going to go anywhere, are they, in that sense? So let's just keep on the bright side and observe and watch. I'll be back with you at a point when I've got a clearer picture, and when there's an obvious, a very clear pathway to this. And I will make sure that I will keep you informed by my newsletters that I infrequently send out, or by doing something on this nature again. And I think that's the main thing. But that's the end of the heavy stuff. But I wanted to get that across, because I think that's that's really quite vital. So what am I doing as well with regard to my tuition and things like that? I've got a platform that I in the last couple of days I've come up with this, which is something called Patreon, which I think is used by artists and various other people, and it's essentially a kind of like a crowdfunding idea. And what I've come up with is three levels, if you like, and I wanted to take you through this. The idea with Patreon and what it is it's a way of people connecting to creative artists, musicians, people like that. Let's say, for example, you wanted to create an album and you wanted to do a vinyl pressing of that album. Well, to create it, you need to have backers these days, because it's too much of a risk to suddenly go and create 10,000 records to find that you've got 8,700 of them sat in your garage. So you can see the problem straight away. So the Patreon idea is simply a kind of a similar crowdfunding thing, and you can break it into different tiers. And I did during lockdown, I did a very successful 6 weeks of Photoshop and sort of like online photography tuition, which went incredibly well. And I was doing as many as 2 a day, up to about 5 hours a day. for 6 days a week a lot of the time for 6 straight weeks during lockdown. Every day was get up, bike ride, come back, lesson, or lesson, bike ride, another lesson, something on those lines. I was doing all sorts. So it was fitness and Photoshop for the whole start of the summer. So I've come up with this idea. Now, excuse the dollars. You can see they if I switch this on, that the main thing is that what this is a platform that allows me to monetize what I'm struggling to monetize online. And the reason why I'm having trouble with this is because if you take something like Facebook, and if you take Instagram and YouTube and various other things, they all just constantly require your attention. Now, obviously, Instagram can only really be monetized if you've got sponsorship or things on those lines. Facebook, well, you have to pay them as far as they're concerned if you want to see anything more than 1% of your group, which I think is pretty disgusting, to be honest. There's no organic growth anymore, and many other sides of it. So what I've decided to do is try this, which is a 3-tier sort of membership level. And to my knowledge, my post-processing, and generally just a lot of information that is not going to be available in any other platform. So in other words, whereas a lot of people tend to put a picture on Facebook, replicate it on Instagram, replicate it on Twitter, and then spend all this time farming all these comments and spending a lot of time putting business input into these things, unless you actually got some way of monetizing that, you're literally getting nothing back for your time at all. So what I've just decided to do is I'll still keep posting pictures irregularly on that, but what I'm going to regularly do is a 3-tier aspect of Patreon. And basically what it will be is for £3, excuse the $4, I can't get it into pounds at the moment, but for £3 a month, essentially what I'm going to do is it's going to have posts, it's going to have image content, it's going to have image breakdowns. So in other words, I'll post pictures and I'll post content on those pictures, and it will also have a community aspect, so you can drop a message in, just like as if you were posting on a social media platform, and then that would then allow me to see a picture that you've got, ask me a question about something on those lines, and I can help you out. And that's literally the very basics. It's for an enthusiast, as I've put, keen to pick up tips from my posts, enjoy image content, and interact with me through posts to understand the creative process better. That's tier 1, and that's £3 a month. Then I've got tier 2, which is going to be 10. And what that is I'm going to create short video clips. In other words, either clips on interesting, important stuff. And you know me, I do love my tech. I do love communicating new things I've found through Photoshop and stuff like that. So I'm going to make you short videos, again, that will be available through that. It'll also give you access, as it says there, to a 1-hour interactive Zoom presentation. And what I'll do is anybody who's a tier 2 will be invited to a presentation. It will be a closed doors presentation on something specific. So it will either be, you can watch me process something, you can watch me work on something, you can see me assess catalogs, you can see me do all sorts of things that I would do in a digital environment, or I would talk to you about photographic approaches and photographic concepts that will help lift your photography up and push things forward. I put here, these will be about techniques, locations, all manner of photography subjects, and I'll be doing at least 1 a month. So the idea is then that you will gain access to all of this. But if you've got access to level 2, you've also got access to level 1 as well. So it's building in that sense. And then 3, right now 3 is significantly more, and that's 25 a month. Now you're probably thinking, like, Dave, I've got phone bills to pay, I've got various things that I need to sort out, I can't pay you £25 a month. And I would understand, but for some people this is actually a really good thing, because what I'm going to do is for that £25 you'll have a personalized one-to-one session with me for an hour, and it'll be on a monthly basis. So for example, let's say you are processing your work, you are coming into technical problems, you have got technical problems you'd like to solve, then you can have my attention for, in other words, it's for £25 for the hour, for me to be able to help you solve issues that you get with all of this. We can do these sessions privately, they can be recorded, and anybody who's had sessions with me over that lockdown period, I hope that you thoroughly enjoyed it. I know that I did, and it was really great to move you forwards into all sorts of different things. And I did everything from standard landscapes to seascapes to I did specific infrared ones. I did all sorts of subject matters, and I will happily do the same thing and cater for you guys for anything that you feel that you want to do. And also, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you access to not only tier 2 and tier 1 again, so you'll get all the other things, including video shorts and stuff, and then you can just log into it in the same way you would as if you were logging into Facebook to see this content. And then I'm also going to offer those people out first dibs on my new tours that I will be advertising in the future. So if it's something that you really would like to do, in other words, having a controlled time every month that you can meet me online and go through some processing with me, I can help you with portfolios, I can help you do all these sorts of stuff that I do with the RPS now. One of the things I've been doing over the last year is working on my panels. I work for the applied panel and the travel panel doing assessments. So you're in great hands here with regard to assessment of your work and helping you push your work further forwards. And I'd be very, very pleased to have you on board. And what this does, and I think that although you see a lot of, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube and there's a lot of stuff on varying platforms that you could probably go to for Photoshop tips, or you just go in and how do I get my cursor to be a brush or something, you do things like that, but that's all very straightforward things, etc., some of which I'll probably highlight as well as I find things. But what it is it's like having somebody on your side who is finding out and bringing to your attention, bringing stuff forwards in that sense for you, so that you can be part of a team here. So you'll have me on your side when it comes to doing this, and this will then, obviously because it's a paid platform, will push me forwards to create better quality stuff, and I'll know then I will have a nice tight captive audience of people who will be interested in improvement and interested in taking that work onwards to the next level and producing portfolios of really good, enviable standards. So I'm very much wanting to do that. I'm just at the end of doing the pages. I've just done a post. I'm going to do a few others as well before I actually put it live at the moment, but that's the platform. So it's £3 a month just for information. You can see work I'm doing and image breakdowns, and tour announcements and things like that will come through here, although they won't be in advance. And then we'll have tier 2, which is basically going to be Photoshop processing tuition, private videos that hosted, and a chat community type thing as well that you get with level 1. And then the other one is for those people wanting to have a 1-hour session with me every month. And by doing so, by booking in that 1 hour, you'll be paying for that 1 hour every month. We can make sure that you get a very best of photographic tuition from me, and I'll push it forward. So something to think about. I'll send a mail shot out to everybody as well, so they've got that information as I've got it 110%. But I may tweak a few things here and there, but it's Patreon, patreon.com. And it will be my Patreon account that you'll be able to go to. So I'll still do bits on social media, but I'm not gonna. I can't monetize. I can't spend hours making video content and hours doing these things that other YouTubers with 400,000 followers are actually paid to do. I totally get why they do it, and they've probably been through the dark years of just trying so hard to get that to work. I've never been able to do it. I will never be able to do it because I monetize my business in so many other ways and so many different revenue streams that it's not viable to do just one thing. And I would hate to be stuck behind a computer every day thinking, oh, it's Friday, I've got to make video content that I've got to stick live, and I've got to make this gigantic media production. But what I am good at is making, hey, you haven't seen this, bang, 5 minutes, done, and I can get it out to you all, and you'll be able to see this in other words, it's a drip feed into my mind, or something similar if you like. So think of it that way anyway. I'll let you decide. Have a think, and we can go from there. But without further ado, let's get some more images up. I'd really like to show you some of the stuff I've been doing. It's been, like I said, it's been a black and white summer. I did a load of portraits as well, which were really fun. But let me just start with some London stuff. If you live in London, go to Camden right now, because there's crossings that that were painted for a lot of the festival stuff. They were obviously getting near festival season, and there were fabulous crossings that were all multicolored rainbows, etc., on the main road in Camden. So that's a really good place to go to right now. Loiter and hang around on crossings. I just wanted to just pop up a comment from Jane. Jane, thank you for that. I really appreciate you said that you're 100% behind your approach. So I really appreciate that. But what I wanted to do was say to you as well that I've had a chance to use the Canon EOS M6 Mark II, and all the images you're going to see of London were all taken on that camera. And how much of a fabulous camera that is! It was incredibly good. I managed to borrow one for my holiday period of a month as I went around the country. So I had that and my other lenses, and what an improvement it was over my original M3. So I just thought I'd mention that as soon as I saw your name there. I can't believe it, Glenn. You finally got here. You missed the first hour. Good job. You can rewind it on YouTube and on Facebook should you need to. So you can go back an hour and watch the first hour if you feel so inclined. Let's move to the next one. I did some of the classic cliches. I went and got to London and met up with some friends. It was absolutely brilliant fun. I went to Canary Wharf for the first time with a photographic perspective, which was great. This is the only one that I've got to show you so far, but I've got some others that I've yet to process. But Canary Wharf is a fabulous place to go to, and it was really nice that you could wander around and not just have the whole police force turn up and boot you out of places like you often get from being a photographer indoors. Now, the M6 is exceptionally good as a tourist or professional photographer disguised as a tourist camera. And of course, I can't still monetize these pictures because, in that sense, they are, as you can see, they've required property releases and all the rest of it. So that's an issue overall. But it was great to just have the opportunity to wander around and explore this area, and I was very struck by how similar it was to Boston in specific. Boston is very sort of blue steel and sort of silvery sort of blue steel, and also silvery sort of glass as well. It's fabulous how much of a color palette similarity there was between the two overall. I went on the Docklands cable car. How fantastic that is. Absolutely brilliant. Just shot this through my cable car window, as you can see there, just looking out over tower blocks that are in the distance. I really urge you, just for a fun thing to do before the weather comes in towards the end of the year, if you do live in London and you haven't been down there, or you live anywhere near that area, to definitely go and explore it. It's a little bit cold in its architecture. I think it's going to take some time before it really starts to become a very a very populous area. I think it's lacking its humanity probably more than anything else. There's a lot of steel, there's a lot of new construction going in there, but I'm sure over the next 10 years it's going to be a really fabulous place to be. And of course you've got the O2 and various other parts down there as well, which are quite similar, but there's a lot of photographic opportunities. This was a particularly wonderful abstract that I really liked from that particular shoot, of just the cable cars. They go up over the river like that and then sort of come down. One goes up there and comes down the other side, so to speak. But to view it from different perspectives was really good. Again, you can see my whole passion this summer for shooting monochrome. I've no idea why I did that in such abundance, but it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. I did all sorts of portraiture this summer as well, and one of the good things was I didn't actually do any shoots that weren't roughly sort of relatively spontaneous, and this is really good, because the fact is it gave the people that I shot, they didn't have much time to prepare, so it didn't become this worry about suddenly becoming a big problem. Have I got the right clothing on? All that. It was just all spontaneous stuff. And I did 3 notable portrait shoots in specific, and a couple of street shoots that were just happened to be colliding into things. This is my dear friend Jake. I lived with Jake in central London in the late 90s. Jake was about. The really funny thing is, I've got a photograph of Jake here. There's Jake. Jake would probably be in horror that I'm actually showing you. Look, he's made himself a fake head out of a piece of paper. Oh, God knows. I lived in a flat in central London, and Jake and I and Dom and a couple of other people were living in this flat. He was a journalist for a Record Collector magazine, and I learned so much from him with regard to records. He would get all these promos coming in all the time, and we'd sit and listen to music. And a lot of my musical education comes from the early days of spending time with him. But the great thing about Jake is he's grown this kind of fabulous sort of C6 Steve beard, which is really great, and it suits him down to the ground. It really does. When I saw him for the first time in quite some time, he was shaven and without the cap and the sort of like the biker look. And I said to him, just wear anything that you think is meaningful. And he's only got the neckerchief around his neck because of the fact being that he's having to pull it up over his face all the time because he didn't like face masks. And he's got a Simply Red t-shirt on from a 1992 World Tour, which is just Jake all over. It's just hilarious. And we got some really interesting lighting here in the back streets of Brighton, where all of this began. And if I can just about grab it without pulling off my earphones, but I did it all with this, which is a Mamiya. It's a 645 Pro TL. It's a lovely, lovely camera indeed to use, and it can just show you the quality of the pictures that you can get. All these were shot on Pro 400H, but all I did was because I didn't want loads of camera gear with me the whole summer. What I did was I took some film. I took the M6 digital, which did a lot of what I did, I have to say, when I was away. And then when I got the chance to slow down a bit or to compose pictures and to get the time behind it, I used this. And this is a really lovely piece of kit. It's if you wanted to buy one now, it would probably cost you about 450 quid without a lens. And hey, look, it's even got this fabulous new feature. You should have a look at it, see if you can get it on any of your cameras. It's called aperture priority. It's going to be all the rage, I reckon. It's got interchangeable film backs as well and various other bits, but it produces really, really excellent portraits. And if I saw my friends, in other words, it's my like friends and family camera, and that's what I was doing. It was just taking this camera out and having fun with it. So a lot of these ones were taken with Jake on Brighton Beach and in some of the back streets that we were at. And he told me a funny story. That's an old 1970s British Rail trackside jacket. And he said he's got two of them, except he lost one of them because he got drunk in a pub in Brighton, and apparently, quote, he gave it to somebody. I have no idea, but I think that might have been quite some years ago, because he very much looks after himself. And it was just a fabulous, fun situation to take his portrait and spend some time with him, as it was anyway. It was really great. He thought this was the shot, though, which I think is just ridiculous. He sat next to a metal bin on Brighton Beach, and he said, "Look, take this one." And I don't think he realised that I'd given him the Mickey Mouse ears, which he thought was a funny, comical thing to add in. So, in other words, it's been a time of great fun to have fun with my mates again and to enjoy photography in a different perspective. It also led me to this shoot, and one of my clients, Nigel Rosenbaum, this is his son Harry, and Harry is an up-and-coming sportsman. He's a really shining hockey star at the moment, and he also loves his cycling. And because of the fact that I've been chatting with a friend of mine, Tim, who's also features in this little sequence. It'll come up in a minute. And Tim is, I took his portrait. He stayed at my house for a short period. And whilst he was there, he said to me, "Dave, you mentioned about taking my portrait last time I came down." I said, "Yeah, because he's a striking guy, late 30s, very athletic. He's a great guy." And we went and did a shoot in my house, which was just fantastic fun to do. And when he looked at the photographs, he said to me, "I don't know what to make of them." And I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't know. He said, I just don't know what to make of them. He said, I don't feel any connection with them really at the moment. And I said to him, it's because it's not really for now. It's actually something you'll look back on when in 20 years or 25 years, we'll be looking back on that and just going, wow, I was in great physical shape, peak of my fitness or whatever, you know. And this is where all of this came from. In other words, I almost transposed the same mindset to Harry. And when I saw him out riding his bike and doing stuff over the 4 or 5 days that I explored the Peak District with Rachel, my wife, and Nigel, who put us up, whose father this is. Harry, I said to Harry, let me take some photographs of you. So they'll, you know, you can just keep them for prosperity's sake. You can just look back at them and just say, yeah, look at me, 20 years old. I was really into my cycling and fitness and everything on those lines. And they all came out really, really well. I was really, really happy with them. Here's the Tim pictures, for example. Tim didn't know what to do. He never posed for pictures in his life, been a model. He's always model quality when you look at him, isn't he? He's got a Michael Hutchence thing going on at the same time. But it was the opportunity to he was actually photographing somebody who very much in their own lives was in transition. Sadly, his relationship has ended, and he was very much quite lost when he came down and stayed with us. But he was also assertive, and he was also quite intent on you know, turning things around. And his life has changed so much for the better in the last couple of weeks, even, which I'm so pleased to be able to say. But at the time when he was here, it was really he wanted me to do that because he was interested in what the outcome would be, and he still doesn't see the value in any of the outcome of this at the moment, as it is, and that's because it will happen in the future. And I urge you to do the same. In other words, what I'm trying to say is go back to your your friends, your family, and photograph your friends and family. I mean, let me just show you some of these, which is my film camera stuff I've done on holiday. I've just been. You can see if you can just scan over the thumbnails that there's just lots and lots of stuff that you'd never see me do. And the reason why is because I kind of felt a need to go back and do this sort of stuff. And out of it came some really lovely pictures, like this picture of my wife that I took with that camera again. It's done at a very, very shallow depth of field. It's done it, I think it looks something like f2 or something like that, done in a lane in Cornwall. It was just in other words, this image has a lot of sentimentality to me because I've managed to capture her in this almost my pixie-like wife. She probably slapped me for saying that, but in this environment that's very, it's very similar. I got some just nice photographs of her in these little sections of woodland, and these I think I will hold very dear because they do, in that sense, really captivate me. And I'm glad I did them, and I'm glad I did them in this way as well. And I'm glad that there was a risk about taking them as well. In other words, that they may not come out or something like that. So it was a really good thing to do. This is totally crazy. Did any of you see a YouTube video? It was a viral kind of YouTube, might have been on Instagram as well, of a kid skating through central London in St Paul's. And as he was skating along, he gets door slammed by somebody. In other words, he's holding onto the back of cars and being really reckless, and he's singing along to songs that are in his headphones and all that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden, he sort of like just goes in between a parked car and the curb, and someone opens the door of the car, and he gets shoved across the side and ends up. You can find it anyway. It's quite easy to find on YouTube. Well, I go to a place called Davidstow Airfield in my wanderings around in Cornwall. And suddenly I find these two people, I don't know if you can see them there, sitting in the top of this abandoned building in the middle of an airfield. Like, what on earth are they doing? They've got a sleeping bag draped over the pair of them. So I went up to go and have a look. And when I got up the top, I ended up having a chat with them, and then ended up finding them sitting on the top of this viewpoint, looking out over this airfield, and I was just thinking, it's got all graffiti and various other stuff in it, and it's this kid from this viral video that was done in London. He's called Jack something, Jack Tierney, I think his name is. He's very famous. He's got like about 150,000 followers on YouTube or something on those lines, and does Instagram rather, and does loads of online videos and all sorts of other stuff. But it was really great to just use the camera and to relax, in other words. And what I'm doing is I'm taking pictures of my friends' dogs or whatever. In other words, relaxing into the photographic process and enjoying the photographic process, documenting things, documenting my friends, documenting my holiday, but doing it in a way where I'm also how could you say? Because I'm taking the pictures and then I've got these little rolls of memories, and then I stick them in the post, and then they come back, and I can't even remember 90% of what I've probably taken for a lot of it. That in that sense, that process in itself is actually a really wonderful thing. It's a bit like sitting with your raw files folder, but not actually really looking at everything until later on. And that, I think, is vital overall. It's a very good process, and it's learnt another discipline. So although you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to go and do what you've done, I'm not going to spend money on film in that sense. It's the fact that that wasn't the reason why it was done. It was done because it was a total disconnect from what I've been doing, and I like mixing everything up and playing around with things. Like I said, I've been hiking and looking at shitty farmhouses, and I don't know. I mean, I've got a thing about barns and stupid stuff like that anyway. But what I'm trying to say is that you want to try mixing it up. A message I've got for you, probably even if anything this evening, is you've got the opportunity now to mix things up, to play around with things, to experiment, to see how you feel about stuff, to take risks, and you can do so now without worry of failure. And if you can do that in the way that works for you, in other words, start with something simple. I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go to places where I live that I've never been to before, and I'm going to explore, and I'm going to study it, and I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to have another go, and I'm going to work out. And suddenly you'll be surprised. You'll have this big list, and this list will contain all sorts of new potential that can help you keep your eye on things from your local environment. And that's a massive part of, I suppose, is what I've managed to do over the last few months. And the experience has been really, really good, and I'm glad that I've done it. It's given me a chance to really reflect on what I want to do more of as well, and what I also enjoy. And it's also made me really yearn for those places that I haven't been able to get to. It's made me yearn for the USA. It's made me yearn for the deserts. It's made me yearn to go back to Iceland and to Norway and to think about these things. And I know that this isn't going to be possible yet. And in that sense, almost having it out of my grasp has made it even more valuable, has made the pictures that I've got even more valuable, has made my memories more meaningful, because now it's not there right now. It's not as easy to go for me. And okay, I could jump on a plane, but you know what I mean. We've been through all that this evening anyway. So it's time to focus back here, and it's time to relearn what's around me. And I'm going to do exactly that. I'm doing that tomorrow. I'm leaving here, and I am going down in my camper van down to Cornwall, and I'm going to spend a bit more time down there again, continuing my exploration of places I don't know, because we all imagine it's just the coastline, don't we? Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it. I feel very, very relaxed down there, and it's a wonderful holiday opportunity for me. But There's plenty of other things to see there, and they're not the normal things. In other words, I haven't explored the China clay pit area in Cornwall. I want to go and see my friend Mark Elliott, who lives in St Evell, and I want to go and explore that. And I want to go and explore places that I haven't seen or been to. You know, and start to build a greater understanding. I mean, how long has it been that I've just driven down the A30, looking left and right off to, you know, the granite hilltops, and seen things like Bodmin Moor, and never explored Bodmin Moor at all. And then I did some of it this summer, and it was great, and it was really fun. And I'm going to do more of it because it needs to be done, because it's here. It's no more than just over an hour away from me, a lot of it. Certainly no more than 2 hours, depending on where I go. And I can have a great time doing it as well, and learn. And it's about learning. That's obviously what I'm still very keen to keep on doing. So I just wanted to bring this more towards a close, and thank you, my friends, for being here. It's been brilliant to see you all, and have some comments from lots of people. Alan says, get your tent out and head into the wilds. We need to get our tents out and head into the wilds. Alan, how Phil Starkey and I did a walk right across Dartmoor last year. We went, I think it was like 35 miles in total in the end. And we learned at the time how remote Dartmoor can be. And that is a really, really important thing. So, yes, we need to go and do that. We need to go and do it before it gets too blinking cold or wet or everything else. David, I've seen your post. I just want to say hello to you, and thank you for joining us. You did message me earlier, and I'm so glad that you managed to come and join me for this talk. It's been really good to have you here as well. David's up in North Devon. He's a avid landscape, seascape photographer. I met him by complete chance up on Dartmoor. We hit it off and had a good natter when we were up there. Howard in Boston. I can't believe it. You made it. How brilliant. That's really good. Fantastic to see you, Howard. And look after yourself. Stay safe. I will be in Boston at some point very soon. Within the next few years anyway, at least, he says. But yes, and I'll definitely come and look you up without a doubt. Going down through, Carla made it. Carla, you made it. Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. I saw something about you playing golf or something. I don't understand what that is, but it's I guess you've been out swiping your putter, but I don't know whether you mean computer golf or golf. So was that Terry? It was Terry Gibbons. Terry, how are you, my friends? I haven't seen you for a long time, and the next time he says, "What's going on here?" Then I hope you're still here then, and you haven't gone off. But I thank you ever so much. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. If anybody's got any questions in these closing seconds that they'd like to ask me, then by all means, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Likewise, thank you, Howard. Appreciate it. I'd be more than happy to answer anything if you've got anything. But I think all I'm really saying to you is that look after yourselves. Don't do anything rash, and stay healthy and fit, and to make sure that you are, really thinking about the future and planning for the future. And let's hope that this turns over and we're in a safer and a great environment as we get nearer the time. So, I mean, I have got tours running next year that are already in place that I've moved over from this year. There's just question marks over them for the moment, and as far as I'm concerned, it has to stay that way. And as we move forwards and go further in, we'll make sure that we do so in the right framework, and we'll do this properly. I've just got a message here that says, Lynn Buckley, I've only just tuned in. Where have you been, Lynn? Can I view this afterwards? Yes, you can. All this is recorded on Facebook and will be on Facebook on my feed, and you can just watch the whole thing from there. And also it will be on YouTube as well, which is really good. Chris says, thanks for sending the email earlier. I'm with you on the level-headed approach. All the best from Southampton. You just inspired me to get out more. I hope so. That's the best thing to do, isn't it? Is to, you know, we live in a lovely country in the UK, and Howard lives in a lovely country in the US, and so does Debbie. I see you, Debbie. I just noticed you were there as well. Debbie says, I know your images are exposed perfectly. I thank you very much for that. She's referencing, we went and did a trip to Provence in the summer. She was one of my clients who came on a very, very funny trip to Provence that we all had, which was a real blast. So glad to see you were here as well. And yeah, basically, Keith, thank you very much. Very pleased you enjoyed it as well. That's been really good. And yeah, so look after yourselves. I'll be back in touch with the whole Patreon approach, and what I'll do is I'll send a link out with my newsletter. And Gary says, Ross sends a love. Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it. That's Gary Maunder there. And I'll send out a newsletter with regard to this a bit further, and of course there'll be some information on the usual social media platforms as I go forwards. So I do hope that would work for you anyway. I think I'm quite excited about that. A couple of people I've spoken to today directly on the phone have said that they would really like to have an hour's worth of tuition for you know, on a monthly basis, because somebody I spoke to today just said, look, I pay 15 quid every time I get somebody to come in my house and walk my dog. So I'm sure I could. I was thinking that the dog wouldn't get walked then, but you see what I'm saying. When you look at it in the grand scheme of things, having a one-to-one session, a one-to-one lesson with me could really work to help you guys improve. So if you just want to try and get in touch with me directly, then you can contact me on my usual ways. info@davidclapp.co.uk, or you can just find me through my website, etc. Or if not, then just anything through social media will work as well. So there we go. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate it all. And I hope you've enjoyed my dip into a new level of work that I've got. I've also got some stuff that I'll be showing on my website. Do keep an eye on my website more than on social media. There's more material and more work goes up on social media than there is anywhere else. But in the meantime, it's wine o'clock, I think they call it, don't they? It's 9:45. I do hope you've enjoyed it. I'll be back again. I'm going to attempt to do more of these free talks. They're going to be about locations. Somewhere like, I'll take you through Namibia and show you the sorts of stuff that you could see in Namibia. And also, I might do something like the Outer Hebrides, or I might do something like places in Ireland that you can go and visit. All these sorts of things that I'm going to try to do for the future, so you can just have some entertaining images to look at and some banter. But thank you for your comments, and thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it. And then finally, I've just got to say this one. Have you spoke to Raoul in India, says Paul Mann. Yes, I have. Don't worry. He is completely safe. He is also out of work, as you can probably imagine. He hasn't worked for 7 months now. It's been, he stopped before lockdown even happened in India. And it's been, sadly, a terrible situation for him out there. But he's fine. His family's fine. His mum is fine as well, believe it or not. He went to go and stay with his parents for a while, and everybody is all okay in India, including his baby son and his wife, of course. So yeah, don't worry about any of them. I keep in touch with them on a regular basis, which is really great. Ian, I'm very glad you made it. Thank you very much. Really appreciated. Claire, also, thank you very much for being here. That's been really great for you to be here as well. And Chris Beard, thank you as well. I've just seen your avatar pop up there. Good to see you again, and thanks for joining in and tuning in. So yeah, on an irregular basis, probably one a month, I'll do another one of these talks. And I don't know what I'll do it on next, but thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. If you missed any of it, you can catch up on YouTube and Facebook. So long. Have a relaxing rest of the weekend, and I'll see you again soon.